Ball is fumbled, picked up by Kenneth Olabode, and he runs it in from the 6.
And Colorado has upset UCLA.
20th, and there it is! Are you kidding me?
Jumper from 15 and will knock it down. Kennedy Leonard.
Over left, there's a slip screen inside. Actually elevates and slams with the left hand.
First shutout since 2012. Lufau has space, and Cepho Lufau into the end zone to get Colorado on the board.
Well, undoubtedly the rise was real, but the Buffaloes ran into reality here at the Alamo Dome in San Antonio, Texas, in the Alamo Bowl as they fall to Oklahoma State 38-8. Everybody welcome in at the Stampede once again. I'm Mark Johnson along with Coach Gary Barnett. Buffalo's season comes to an end with 2 losses in a row. They fall to 10-4 in the season. Of course, they won the South Division Championship of the Pac-12 with an 8-1 record. But, Coach, when you look back on this one, when they played those top 10 teams, they ran into trouble. They surely did in this ballgame.
Well, and I think we need to separate those 4 top 10 teams out away from what the whole season was, and we way overperformed anybody's expectations. No one saw 10 coming, and the games we were supposed to win, we won, and that's a sign of good coaching, and that's a sign of kids listening. We got ourselves involved with 4 teams that were probably better than we were. And we slugged it out with Michigan. We slugged it out with SC. And, we didn't do such a good slugging it out against didn't do very well slugging against Washington. And we certainly didn't do a very good job slugging it out against Oklahoma State tonight. But the important thing is we were in the fight. And the way you get better is by playing better people. And we earned the right to play 2 of those teams that were better than we were. And we have a chance to look at it as a team, as a coach, as a program, that, you know what, we know what we got to do now. The other 2 games were on our schedule. We couldn't do anything about them. We're going to play one of them next year for sure. But you don't get better unless you play better people. And we did that tonight. We played a better team.
Gary and I talked about this late in the radio broadcast. I think what we saw here as this year wore on was the lack of depth for Colorado became an issue. You used the term we were leaking oil late in the season. That depth was tested, and that's the next step then for this program is to kind of build that depth, correct?
Mark, in our very first broadcast this year, you said what was the key, and I said I'm going to give you the key to the season. I said number 1, we got to stay healthy. You know what? We didn't do a bad job of that.
Yeah.
But in the end, we probably were not as healthy as we could have been in the last game. And then I said the senior leadership has got to take over this football team and take it where it's capable of going. And I think both of those things happened. We got lucky in that we stayed healthy, but in the end, health hurt us against Michigan. It hurt us against Washington. It may have hurt us against SC. I'm not sure. And it hurt us tonight.
Sure.
So we were lucky enough to win 10. And then our senior leaders did just an incredible job, I think, and credit goes there to the coaches as well. But between those 2 groups, I think we had great leadership in this program this year.
A guy like Cepho Lufau, he leaves his program with 98 career records. He led this team to a 10-win season here in his senior campaign. He took a lot of criticism over the course of his career, a lot of it unfair. I thought he handled it beyond the measure of maturity for anybody. I don't care what age you are. He's a guy that walks away from this thing, and I think I said late in the broadcast, he's got to be the poster boy of what you're looking for in a student athlete, isn't he?
Absolutely, and he carries himself so well, and he says the right things. And people like that are looked up to in that locker room. He doesn't have any frailties. He doesn't have anything that someone can attack in his character, and that's what leaders are. That's right. That they become leaders. People like that, and he could stand up. And we heard one of the players tonight in one of the interviews say, what'd you learn from Cepho? He says, he is such an incredible leader. He works so hard, and he leads by example. He won't ask you to do anything that he won't do. And when you got somebody like that, you can do a lot of things, and especially as your quarterback.
Yeah, that comment was by Steven Montez, who appears to be the heir apparent of the quarterback position. So, lastly here, what's the next step for the Colorado Buffaloes under Mike McIntyre in this program?
Well, time-wise, it's finish off your recruiting class. The next thing that happens is you evaluate everything that happened he's got to settle his staff down. Then you evaluate everything that happened throughout the year and you look at it objectively. You go stand in front of the mirror naked and you see what your issues were and what they are, and then you set out to try to decide how to fix them. If it means going and visiting other places, if it means changing a scheme, if it means doing something different, it means more time in a weight room or whatever, you make those decisions and then you put that plan to work and then you sell your players on that plan.
Well, undoubtedly, the rise was real. It was a great season, a historic season. In fact, the greatest turnaround in Pac-12 history as the Buffalo's 2016 campaign comes to an end here in San Antonio in the Alamo Bowl, 38-8 as the Buffs fall to the Oklahoma State Cowboys. For Gary Barnett and Mark Johnson, we'll continue in a Stampede. We're going to continue kind of unpacking 2016. Neill Woelk of CUBuffs.com will join us next.
Hey, Buff fans, John Guyton here. We're here with Sean Tubbs here at the Alamo Bowl. Sean, how's it going?
Oh, the Alamo Bowl is great. We're so happy to be here, coming back since 2002. It's a great scene. I was told we have 4,000 people here, and Oklahoma State has like 200 in Pompano, somewhere across the street. So we're happy, man. We're all here in force.
Good. Now, what does it mean for you being an alumni and finally seeing the fans happy again? What does that mean for you personally?
Oh, it's incredible. This is my brand. CU's everything I've ever done, everything I've ever been a part of. And I do a lot of work in Texas, right? So I come down to Houston, and I gotta have pride in my city, right? I gotta have pride in my team, and the Buffs being back is great for everybody.
Great to see former Buffs and Buff Nation turning out in San Antonio, Texas for the Alamo Bowls. The Buffaloes fall to Oklahoma State 38-8. Neill Woelk of CUBuffs.com joining us. I'm Mark Johnson of KOA Radio. Really, the turnout for all the postseason stuff for Colorado was fantastic, wasn't it?
Oh, I thought it was great to see a full house there of Colorado fans at the Alamo Bowl, fans everywhere in town, up and down the Riverwalk, and I think CU showed up really well in that regard.
Buffs end up 10-4 on the season. Of course, they won the Pac-12 South, lost their last couple of ball games, Pac-12 title game, and the Alamo Bowl. Neill, what do we take away, do you think, from this 10-4 season under Mike McIntyre?
I think you look at look at this in three different ways. Number one, you look at the past and where they were coming into this season. This team was 2-25 in the last 3 years in the Pac-12. This year they went 8-1. So obviously a great improvement. And then you look ahead and say, okay, where do they have to get better? And I think we saw it in those last two games. I think you saw it at Washington. I think you saw it against Oklahoma State. Where do they have to go to compete against the elite of the nation? They're a very, very good program right now. I think they've got a great springboard going ahead, but they have to take that next step to compete against the elite.
There's that old line in football, we've been saying it for years. It ain't the X's and O's, it's the Jimmy and Joe's. And the Buffaloes, as improved as they are, they've got to work, and that's what recruiting's all about, working on that depth, don't they?
Oh yeah, you've got to have quality players in uniform. I mean, you have to have good players. I think Colorado had a lot of good players. They need to take that next step and get a lot of great players in uniform, because I think you saw that against Oklahoma State and again against Washington. Those are two top 10 programs in every regard. I mean, Oklahoma State's a team that had been to 11 straight bowl games now. They knew how to react when they got there. Colorado, I think, had some stars in its eyes. I think the players were a little bit lost in the sense of, wow, this is great, this is neat, but they were looking around and you could just tell it was a new experience for them. They need to get to that point where they're going down there to go to work.
You've covered this program for a long time. Sefo Liufau will go down as one of the greats of all time. Put a postscript on his career for us. A 4-year starter, 3-year captain, nearly 100 records by the time it was all said and done.
I think if you're talking about Sefo, you're talking about the legacy he's going to leave as far as an influence on the program, not just the numbers that he left. I mean, all those passing records, the influence that he had as far as a leader, his warrior mentality, all those things, that's going to be his lasting impact on this program.
So we'll find out about the Buffs' new recruiting class coming up at the luncheon on February 2nd. But as you look in the crystal ball of 2017, what do you see for Colorado?
Number one, I see an offense that's going to be terrific. I mean, I think this offense next year could be a record-setting offense in a lot of ways. You have almost everybody coming back. You lose your starting center, lose your starting quarterback. Normally, you lose your starting quarterback, you're really worried. But they do have a quarterback coming back who became the first quarterback in CU history to throw for 300 and run for 100 in the same game, and Steven Montez. He got a lot of experience, so I think that bodes well. They have everybody else coming back, great receivers, and a couple of receivers who didn't play much this year, one who was out with a knee injury who's going to be good. Flip side of it is replacing defense. 8 starters on defense are gone, graduating. A lot of young guys. I think you're going to see the script flipped a little bit where offense is going to have to carry the load next year, and while the defense plays a little catch-up.
Let's turn our attention to basketball now. It's that time of year, and we start focusing on that. Tad Boyle's team ends up losing its Pac-12 conference opener 76-60 at Utah. They finish up non-conference play at 10-3. There's an adjustment taking place with this team right now, isn't there?
There is. It's a really interesting dynamic there. You've got 4 fifth-year seniors and then a fourth-year junior in George King. They haven't meshed. For whatever reason, they just haven't put it all together. I still think there's a lot of potential in this team. Losing that first game does not signal the end of the season by any stretch. Right. If you remember last year, Utah lost its first conference game. I think a lot of teams are still finding their way through. These next 5-6 games, very important.
But the schedule does not set up very well. Nobody in the Pac-12 is doing the Buffs any favors, by the way. 5 of the first 7 on the road. Now they head down to Arizona State, Arizona, home to maybe 2 of the top, 4 teams in the league with UCLA and USC, and then on the road against Washington.
The good thing of that is when you play 5 of your first 7 at home, it means that you get 5 at home down the stretch of the season. So when you're trying to play for that conference bid, when you're trying to play for an NCAA tournament bid, you get to be at home.
He's Neill Woelk of CUBuffs.com as the Buffs are on the road at Arizona State and Arizona this week in men's basketball. We're going to talk more football and women's basketball. His counterpart, B.G. Brooks of CUBuffs.com, joins us next here in the Stampede.
How do you feel about this Buffalo is finally making it to a bowl again?
Man, it's definitely a relief. I'm so happy. I've been ready to come back, and when I play, the guys will give me a lot of grief in the locker room for us not being competitive. So I'm real happy to see us back competitive and in the bowl game. And I'm glad that it's in Texas, so I'll be able to make it.
Back in the Buffalo Stampede, B.G. Brooks of CUBuffs.com joining us. There are other ways to describe him. I won't do that here. It's a family show. All right, coming back from the Alamo Bowl. You were down there for, I think, about 17 hours. You were actually in town to cover that ball game. But tough loss for the Buffaloes, but 10-4 this season. I think you look back on this, and certainly losing the last couple of ball games hurts. But overall, what's your takeaway from 2016 for the Buffs?
Well, you can't judge the season on the last 2 ball games. Disappointing losses against Washington in the Pac-12 championship game. Of course, disappointing loss against Oklahoma State in the bowl. But overall, you come away from this season really, really feeling good about what Mike McIntyre did, his staff did, and what the players did. 10-4 is not a shabby record. Anytime you win 10 ball games, you got something really to be proud of and hang your hat on. So I think 2016 will be the year that CU fans look back and say, this was a turnaround. Now, there's not a guarantee for 2017 that that they're going to take it and go forward, but I think the foundation has been laid.
Turns out to be the greatest turnaround in Pac-10/Pac-12 history as the Buffaloes go to 8-1, win the South Division, and as a result, 9 Coach of the Year awards for Mike McIntyre, including the Bobby Dodd Award, which I know was special for him because his daddy won that same thing. But well deserved all those national awards for Mike.
No doubt. I mean, it was about as clean a sweep as Mike McIntyre could make in Coach of the Year awards. And I don't think anybody who followed this program or has followed it would look at those awards and say they weren't well deserved. So Mike McIntyre really did do a terrific job in the turnaround here. Everything that he got, all those awards, well deserved.
Yeah, without question. Now, next up, obviously, is adding more athletes. And again, February 2nd, we've got the recruitment luncheon. Joe Cloud of Fox Sports, former Buff's, going to be hosting that. And that's really the next step now. Now they got to have more bodies. We talked with Neill Woelk a little while ago about increasing the depth on this team. That seems to be, I think, the next step for Colorado, don't you think?
No doubt. I think any coach that you talk to is going to first mention depth. And that's the one thing that Colorado has to build on right now. I think the way this recruiting class is shaping up, you're going to find that depth. The Buffs have got things going for them right now, including facilities, including finally a winning season that they can link with these facilities and say, hey, this is paying off.
Let's talk a little basketball now with Neill. We talked about the men. Let's talk about the women. They opened up with a Pac-12 road trip in Los Angeles and dropped to 0-2 in the league, dropping 2 games to UCLA and USC.
Yeah, I think that the USC game, and J.R. Payne said this, that they came out and I think were a little bit shell-shocked. The competition level no doubt went up at USC. And I'm not sure that this team really knew what to expect JR, I think, knew what to expect, but they did take a pretty good beating against USC. The next game against UCLA, ranked number 10, I think they were much more focused. They were more ready to play. They were down by as many as 20 points in the fourth quarter against UCLA, cut that to 8, and really, just didn't roll over like they could have. So I think the improvement that JR's team made between the first conference game and the second was phenomenal. I really think that gave her something to build on as she goes forward into the conference.
We become accustomed to seeing Kennedy Leonard put up some nice points. She had 19 against USC, but how about Haley Smith coming back with 31 against a top 10 team?
Yeah, Haley just had it going against UCLA. She's a phenomenal player. She's a leader on that team, and she does more than shoot the ball. She's a very, very good rebounder. She's I think, the complete package.
He's B.G. Brooks from CUBuffs.com. Stay with us here in the Stampede. We're going to talk all things Buffs with Athletic Director Rick George after a quick timeout.
Busy week for the Buffs, and you can follow all the action on the media page at CUBuffs.com. Men's basketball kicks it off on the road at Arizona State on Thursday night at 7 p.m. That game will be live on the Pac-12 network. The women's team is at home to Arizona on Friday night at 7 p.m. That matchup will be streamed live at CUBuffs.com. The men stay on the road against Arizona Saturday night at 7:30. That game will be broadcasted on the Pac-12 network. And finally, the women welcome in the number 19 Arizona State Sun Devils to the Coors Event Center on Sunday at 4 p.m. You can catch that game live on the Pac-12 network. As always, you can follow all things Colorado at CUBuffs.com.
I think our inspiration for getting involved in this statue was just the history of the program, and Patty and I met at the University of Colorado. She's my CU sweetheart. We owe a lot of what we have to the education and the friendships that we built here at this institution, and just being able to give back in this way has been really meaningful to us.
It's really amazing. It's an amazing accomplishment. The artist did a really great job. We had seen a mock-up, I don't know, maybe a year ago, so it's been a long time coming. It's really beautiful.
There's a lot of pride that goes with this statue, just for all the work that all the handlers over the generations have put into keeping this program alive and going for the best mascot in the country.
Well, that certainly is a great addition to the Champion Center. Hi again, I'm Mark Johnson, along with Athletic Director Rick George. That great statue set up outside the Champion Center. Now the ice and snow here in January, but that's a great piece out there.
Yeah, it really is, and our thanks go to the Imhoff family for supporting that. And Mike, having been a former Ralphie handler, is kind of cool. And I was out there when we dedicated it, and it's a great piece for our fans and for people to come and get a picture and get in the reins and try to when Ralphie's standing still. So it's really cool.
Yeah, get out there and take some photos around that thing. That'll be big during the football season.
And tweet them out.
There you go. I like that. Yes, that's right. At CU Buffs, by the way. How about the football season just wrapped up for us here? Now, I know it wasn't the way we wanted to turn out in the bowl game down in San Antonio, but as you look at the season as a whole, Rick, what's your reaction?
Well, my reaction is, I think sitting here today and being 10-4, I think it's something that we can all be proud of with our program. And where we go from here is, we get a great recruiting class, and then we get consistency, and every year we're going to a bowl game and we're competing and winning championships, and that's what we want from football, and that's what we want from all of our programs.
That is the next challenge, always, to take the next step, isn't it? And you work hand in hand with Mike McIntyre and the coaching staff, or how does that work kind of moving forward during the offseason for you?
Well, look, during the offseason, Mike and I will have a lot of conversations. We don't have a lot during the season, and that's by design because he's got a job to do and he's focused on that, and I try to stay out of the way. And, we'll sit down and talk about a lot of different things, but the recruiting is the number one thing, and I think our coaches and our staff have put us in a really good position there. And it's like everything else, you got to finish it out, and where we end up in middle of February will be a real testament to where we're going.
It's not a real mystery in this business. You win games and fans show up, isn't it? I mean, it's pretty simple. You saw an 18% increase in fan attendance this year.
Yeah, and I think, what we hope that does is translates into a lot of people saying, okay, I'm going to buy season tickets now and come out and support. And, I think winning heals a lot of things, but I think also the atmosphere that we have in Folsom Field, there's not a better setting in college athletics, in my opinion, and to be able to be there on a Saturday night and, looking over the Flatirons with the light in the stadium and a full crowd, I mean, there's a lot of energy to that, and it was a lot of fun this fall, and, we look forward to repeating that this coming fall.
By the way, that Utah game, first sellout in 8 years. You just want to see that about eight times every season, don't you?
Will certainly allow us to do a lot of things that we'd like to do. But yeah, it's important for us, and it's important for our team. And what we want to do in all of our venues is we want to create a home field and a home court advantage, and that goes to basketball and it goes to soccer and lacrosse and you name it. Volleyball. We want to have a great atmosphere where we've got a great home court advantage.
And it wasn't just here at Folsom Field. I mean, you think about the Pac-12 title game in Santa Clara, and certainly down in San Antonio. I thought Buff Nation really showed up.
Buff Nation showed up when we started at Michigan. They were in full force there, and then when we went to Oregon and USC, I mean, our fans came out and really supported what we were doing. And look, it's important for us to have that kind of support in a lot of ways, but it's also good for our student athletes that are out there participating.
How about Mike McIntyre has this great season. We talk about a 10-4 campaign, win the South out of the Pac-12, and then I think he's picked up just about every Coach of the Year trophy he possibly can. Huh?
Well, look, I'm happy for Mike. I'm happy for the program. I think it's great. I'm proud that he's our coach, and I'm happy that he's gotten those awards, and it's a good compliment to our season.
Now, moving forward with staff changes that he's gotten, obviously lost a defensive coordinator. How much do you and he talk about that?
We talk about it probably once a day. Right. That we'll talk about that. But at the end of the day, it's Mike's decision, and I'll support the decisions that he makes. But we've made some pretty good hires when people have left us in the past couple of years that have really enhanced our program, and I think we'll continue to do the same.
Making the pivot now to basketball, obviously, both the men and women have kicked off Pac-12 conference play. It wasn't the best weekend for the Buffs, but overall, great non-conference for both JR and Tam.
Look, we were 10-1 in our non-conference for women's basketball, ranked as high as 20th, and then in men's basketball, we were 10-3 in non-conference play. So I think that set us up. We didn't have a particularly good weekend, but one weekend's not going to define how good these two basketball teams can be.
Well, here's to a great 2017 for the Buffaloes.
Yeah, let's go.
All right. That's Athletic Director Rick George. He and the Buffs looking forward to a brand new calendar year. The men and women both in action, of course, in Pac-12 play. And coming up, before you know it, in fact, on February 2nd, we'll have the recruiting luncheon for Mike McIntyre and the football team. We're going to be on the road with basketball, but Buffs great Joel Klatt of Fox Sports will be hosting that, so make sure you get out there and support the Buffaloes. And we'll talk to you next time here on the Stampede.